Hello, hello, Ashley. How are you doing?
Hello, darling. I am good. I'm present. I'm accounted for. That's all I can ask for.
New month, new
New month,
manifestations.
birthday month, baby. So
Yes, come
we
through.
we try not to do too much day drinking, but don't judge me, okay?
2020.
you
Okay. I
know,
mean, it's 5 o'clock somewhere,
exactly. Appreciate that, my friend.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was really good. You know that I traveled. I know that was not advised. But I did end up traveling back to my hometown. I got to spend some time with my family and friends. So I mean, at this point, that's really all that I could ask for.
Yes.
Good food, great food, actually. Thank you, Mom. And just some good times. And unfortunately, I won't be able to be with them for Christmas. So I just really tried to soak it up as much as possible during this season. How was yours?
It was lovely. I kept it simple since we weren't traveling. And when I say keep it simple, we definitely got like sliced turkey breast from Honey Baked Ham. And
Listen, do your thing.
I did make all the sides from scratch. So we're talking macaroni and cheese, candy yams.
Yes.
I lied. I didn't make my greens from scratch. I used Glory Greens this year.
Delora, no one but you knew that, girl. We was gonna take your word at it, okay?
But you know what? We are not paid for this endorsement, but it is worth saying. Obviously, I don't do anything straight from the can when I do things like that. I jazz them up, but make your own bacon. Get your own bacon grease. Sorry, for vegans out there, and sprinkle some seasonal. We good. Happy Thanksgiving.
Listen. I wish I could have had some of that mac and cheese. I'll say that. It's my favorite.
Yes. And the last thing I was going to say, I didn't even make desserts. I usually make a good sweet potato pie or 3 or a peach cobbler or something. And again, it was literally my little nuclear family. And so we ordered cake from New York. Have you ever heard of the Milk Bar?
I have not.
Yes. I watched several Netflix shows where the owner/creator has been featured, and her cakes have always looked so delicious to me. And I was like, Thanksgiving, let's order a cake. And it came ice packed. It was really impressive.
What kind of cake did you say it was?
So I got the famous birthday cake, and my lovely toddler refers to it as surprise cake. It's the cutest little thing. Whenever she sees confetti, it's like surprise muffins, surprise cookies, surprise cake. So yeah,
Well, that's very cute. I did get to throw down some carrot cake yet again. Thank you, Mother. She fixed that bad boy from scratch. Me, her, and my brother was eating off of it every day. Multiple slices.
Cheese frosting.
Yes, it was delicious. It was delicious. So, again, could not complain. I hope that everybody out there got a chance to, do something you enjoyed during the holiday.
Safely, yes.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get to that, won't we, Delora?
We will. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to Recapping with Delora.
And Ashley.
Yes. So hot topics for this week. I will say it's getting a little difficult to find some good hot topics. You know what I mean? I think things are slowing down, end of year.
Yeah.
Especially after a year we have all had this year.
It's been quite a lot. Like, I can tell you some of the slower weeks, I'm like, you know what? I don't mind it. Not to have anything shocking in the headlines is refreshing. It's refreshing.
I agree. So, for hot topics, the first topic this week, Grammy nominations. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to go ahead and read off the top 4 awards and its nominees. Okay. So the top award, Record of the Year, Black Parade by Beyonce, Colors by Black Pumas, Rockstar by the Baby featuring Rowdy Rich. Is that how you say his name?
I don't know. I think it may be Roddy Rich.
Roddy Rich. I don't know these Z's. Generation Z's out here.
That's sometimes why I love an award show, because that'll be the first time I've ever seen some of their faces.
Right. But have like millions of views for their music videos and then streams. So
exactly.
Say So by Doja Cat, Everything I Wanted by Billie Eilish, personal fave. Don't Stop Now by Dua Lipa, Circles by Post Malone, and Savage by Megan Thee Stallion featuring Beyonce. And I have to say, I have a lot of faves in this category. Second largest, I mean, it's not really the second largest. I mean, these are the coveted top 4 awards. Album of the Year. Whew, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Ashley. This is by your girl, Jhené Aiko.
Jhené Aiko.
Yes.
Chilombo.
Thank you. Chilombo. By, again, Jhené Aiko.
Jhené Aiko.
Jhené Aiko, thank you. Black Pumas, Deluxe Edition by Black Pumas. Everyday Life by Coldplay. D-Jessie, Volume 3 by Jacob Kohler. Women in Music, Part 3 by Hayam. I do like Hayam. Future Nostalgia by Dua Lipa. Hollywood's Bleeding, Post Malone, and Folklore by Taylor Swift.
I'm glad you know who some of these people are, because I have no idea. But
I do.
I'm like, okay.
Song of the Year. Black Parade. A lot of writers on this award, or I'm sorry, for this particular song. That's the one thing about Beyonce music. She be having 15 songwriters listed. And I feel like that's part of the reason why the Grammys don't get me wrong. They recognize her quite a bit, because I have some news on that, but we'll get into that later. The Box. Cardigan, which is a Taylor Swift song. I'm sorry, let's go back. The Box is the rap song by Roddy Rich.
Okay.
Cardigan, Taylor Swift. Circles, Post Malone song. Don't Stop Now, Dua Lipa. Everything I Wanted by Billie Eilish. I Can't Breathe by Her. And
yes, Her, my girl.
Love Her. If the World Was Ending, which is a JP Saxe featuring Julia Michaels. And the last category I'm going to talk about is Best Artist, Best New Artist.
Okay.
Ingrid Andrews, Phoebe Bridgers, Chica, amazing rapper. Noah Cyrus, Miley Cyrus' little sister.
Oh, wow.
D Smoke, Doja Cat. This one is difficult. Trandia.
Apologies if anyone's names are getting butchered. We're doing the best we can over here.
It is literally one word, and I've never seen this word in my life or heard it. And then Megan Thee Stallion will top off our top 4 awards for 2021 Grammy nominations. So I just wanted to highlight really quick, Beyonce is leading with the most nominations, 9 this year. She's now tied with Frank Sinatra with the most record of the year nominations in Grammy history. I thought that was interesting.
All right.
And Taylor Swift is also highly nominated this year with 7 awards. And what are your initial thoughts for these artists? These artists in these top 4 categories. Before I go into the distressed artist, or the snubs.
I mean, so I think because we're going to get to that, my thoughts are already like, how much do I care anymore when I hear these nominations. I think the Grammys, and this is not about any particular celebrity's feelings right now, but for a while, the Grammys have disappointed me with certain awards they've given out and certain people they haven't included. I am excited by some of the artists that I do love that have been nominated, like Janae, like her. But overall,
my girls, Chloe and Halle, were also nominated this year.
I saw super that. Excited. Ungodly Hour was banging if y'all have not listened to it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't move me again, especially because there's been controversy, and I just feel like over time the awards don't mean as much to me as they used to in terms of me feeling like they were the Oscars of music. You know what I mean? It just doesn't hold that weight in my mind.
In the
it just doesn't hold that weight in my mind anymore. That's what I mean in terms of like. When I see it, I'm like, oh, you won how many Grammys? Like that used to be the same as, oh, you won how many Oscars? That is the epitome of success to me. I just don't feel that way anymore. I'll say that. So,
and what I was alluding to is, in some ways, it could be viewed as the Oscars of music because they are, you know, the longest running awards out there, just like the Oscars are. So they have that
an academy, right? There's the academy. And
exactly.
Yes, very prestigious. But again, for me, and I'm sure at this point, a lot of other, not only celebs, but fans, it's just not quite the same as it used to be in terms of when I was a kid, I thought the Grammys were the end all be all of musical success.
Same.
Yeah.
Like a lot of institutions, they're kind of losing their grip, huh?
Just a little bit. When we get into it, Drake had a great quote. So
yes. I want to talk about the most notable snub, and that is from The Weeknd. He had an album that came out this year, and he received 0 nominations. And I want to talk about his tweets. So after the awards came out, he wrote the following on his Twitter: collaboratively planning a performance for weeks to not being invited. In my opinion, 0 nominations equal you're not invited. The Grammys remain corrupt. You owe me, my fans, and the industry transparency. Just wanted to thank the fans for committing to this journey with me. I love you guys so much. None of this is possible without y'all. Seriously, XO. Now, I also want to mention that The Weeknd, had the most streamed song of 2020 in Blinding Lights. It was streamed almost 1.6 billion times in 2020.
Wow.
And to not be recognized at all is actually,
ridiculous.
It's
ridiculous.
It's 0 cents. So,
and I'm not even a fan of The Weeknd. Let me say
same.
that I'm not even a fan.
Keep that 1,000, please.
But let's be clear. If you're talking about someone who is commercially and critically successful for that year, and their music is not remotely recognized, then that's a failure on the part, again, of the award show in terms of relevance. Because why am I supposed to care?
I mean, honestly, there were talks that it was between him performing at the Grammys or at the Super Bowl. And so he chose the Super Bowl, and that was announced. And some people are speculating whether this is retaliation. The president of the Grammys came out and said that by that point, the nominations were already solidified. So, but I agree. It's like you want him so bad for TV because obviously it's still a television show, right? And so he's obviously hot enough for y'all to want him to perform. But
did you happen to catch his performance at the AMAs, by the way, that just aired a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I honestly haven't. I watched it in passing. I wasn't like sitting down totally engulfed. Honestly, the best performance on that show was Doja Cat this year for me.
Interesting. But I just bring it up because I thought it was strange. Like
It's like his video. Have you seen the video for Blinding Lights?
I haven't, but I know he's doing the whole stage thing with the, looking like a crash victim, all these things.
Yes.
And I was just like, again, what is it? Would it have made a difference for me if he performed or not? No. Again, the acknowledgement should have been there though for his artistry and for his accomplishment. So, can we talk about real quick? I don't know if you wanted to get into the Drake.
Go ahead.
Response. I was just gonna say. Again, I think to both of our points, what are the Grammys without the investment of the artists and fans to create its worth, right? So Agreed. When you have people like, Diddy, who previously made a statement saying that the Grammys do not recognize Black artistry, and then you're continually provoking that narrative even after you guys have this whole diversity task force that you supposedly work with on new initiatives, you're still missing it somehow. And Drake, I love Drake's quote where he said, I think we should stop allowing ourselves to be shocked every year by the disconnect between impactful music and these awards, and just accept that what once was the highest form of recognition may no longer matter to the artists that exist now and the ones that come after. It's like a relative you keep expecting to fix up, but they just can't change their ways. And he even went so far as to say somebody should create something new. Yes. Somebody should create a new award show that gets passed down. We've been having
this conversation from definitely the movie point of view for some time now. Yeah. But I agree. But let's keep it 1,000. The Grammys have been doing this with Black artists for a very long time. You remember, we were too young for this, but Will Smith fought and LL Cool J, they fought to be recognized by the Academy because they didn't want to, they didn't want to acknowledge rap as a legit form of music. And obviously it's the biggest one now. Who would have thunk it at that time? No one, but still.
Girl, within the last, how many years is it where they gave Macklemore the rap album of the freaking year?
Over Kendrick?
Over the legends, over the true greats in that category. It was upsetting. It was so upsetting. It was so upsetting.
So
there have been many examples over time, again, that have dictated my thoughts and feelings now, but that was one of the biggest snubs ever.
Absolutely. And even back to the Beyonce point, I'm going to say two things. So the first, Adele saying, what does this woman have to do to get album of the year, right?
When Adele stands up on there and says, listen, Beyonce, this is for you. That means you were wrong. That means you were wrong.
Agreed. And honestly, she deserved it for freaking Lemonade. Are you freaking serious? And don't get me wrong, Adele is amazing, but Lemonade was that. I mean, it again, culturally, Lemonade is cemented in our culture, period. Adele, love Adele. I mean, but it's not, it doesn't have the same weight in my personal opinion.
It doesn't, because it was a whole narrative behind this, right? Like it was an entire feel, look, storyline. Like it was a whole world that Beyonce created for Lemonade.
It was done fantastically. Okay. Yeah. And so what I wanted to say though about Beyonce and her music, I am not against Beyonce whatsoever. Some may even say I'm part of the hive. I do appreciate her quite a bit.
She's the greatest living performer right now.
Not above reproach, in my opinion. And the only thing I'm going to say that's critical is this. One of the things I've noticed whenever they give the awards to maybe the white artist, whether known or unknown, okay, Bjork,
Bon Iver, like, come on, bro.
One of the things I will say when it comes to the number of writers on a song with Beyonce, it has always been this way since Dangerously in Love. There's like, Pookie and on the list. It's like everybody wrote this one song that only had a hook that said three things, right? Yeah. Whereas like Adele, it was either Adele and like maybe one or two other people, like with a grand total of like three people who wrote this song. And I feel like obviously it has not hurt Beyonce, because let's keep it 1,000. She's won over 60 Grammys. So I mean, obviously she's not hurting for them, right?
Yeah.
She hasn't gotten the coveted one, but just overall, she is well recognized, by the Recording Academy. But I really do think that plays a role in what some musicians may prefer one over the other,
And
when
I
it
mean,
comes to.
I can absolutely see it, your point to a certain extent, Laura, especially because I have to think about the fact that as I've gotten older, I definitely respect artists who have their hands in multiple forms of their artistry. Like my favorite vocalist of all time is Whitney Houston, but Whitney Houston never wrote any of her music. And that takes her down a notch for me in terms of being an artist, right? She was a great singer. She's the greatest singer in my opinion of all time.
Always.
But you're talking
someone
about
like
someone
Mariah, who
artist,
makes it clear to you,
writes all of her music, is a part of the production. Exactly. Like, yes, Mariah, there's an artistry, there's a deeper artistry. So again, that's no disrespect. And to your point, I think that may be, but again, Beyonce is, in my opinion, and people can debate this all they want, but she is the greatest living entertainer currently.
Yes.
It's hard to negate what she puts out, the impeccable nature in which she puts things out on such a regular basis, that deserves recognition. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. One last thing I was going to say real quick about the Grammy situation before we moved on, was I didn't realize that the former CEO had filed a lawsuit against the Academy. Did you know this?
Yes, girl. Yes.
So where I was, I was like, again, this whole diversity task force and all this, but you have your former CEO who's alleging sexual harassment and irregularities with the nominations process. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think it took me being in my 30s to realize essentially anything man-made could fall, right? Like there's gonna be some holes, I feel like when you grow up, and I was a very straight-laced child where it's like, well, these are the rules. You're supposed to follow the rules. And then when you realize there aren't any rules.
Or that the rules were put in place to hold you down and hold you back and keep you from succeeding and living your best life, then excuse my language, people, fuck them.
Right. And honestly, one of my favorite quotes, and I found it or learned about it when we were in our master's program. It was from Steve Jobs. I'm paraphrasing it, but he's like, once you realize that the people who created the rules are no smarter than you, that's like true freedom. And I was like, whoa.
Steve Jobs broke every leadership managerial rule in the book. I read his biography and did a report. I think at that time we were doing it. And I just was like, the fact that he was so successful and so respected, but was technically kind of a monster.
I was going to say an asshole for sure.
Yeah. and again, there's some privilege that came along with that, right? The reason why he was able to get away with certain things. We'll be honest. But again, it's definitely interesting to think. And I feel like I've heard that now from a couple of people about the whole idea of, you look at the people who are in charge, who are in leadership, remember, they're just people just like you, and they're no smarter, no more knowledgeable most of the time.
No.
There's just been opportunity or resourcefulness or, stick-to-itness, whatever, that has allowed them to
I will
excel.
say, yes, because persistence, resilience, and all that plays a major role. But what I will say is this, girl. What I will say though is in knowing the rules before you break them, though, I will say that I do believe in reading the room, i.e. Emily in Paris, etc. Read the room, know the rules, and then you can start coloring outside the line. So if there's any, do you have anything else? No,
I'm good to go, girl. We can move on.
We're going to move to our next hot topic this week. And it's celebrities refusing to follow social distancing guidelines.
Yeah.
So Cardi B, she's so in her 20s. Cardi B tweeted November 26th. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Enjoyed my family and friends and the turkey legs. She then continued to tweet, or I'm sorry, this is November 29th when she tweeted, 12 kids and 25 adults over the holidays. It was lit. And then came swiftly the criticism of it all, right?
Right.
So much so that she felt like she had to respond, which she typically does on a regular basis. She then tweeted, Sorry, my bad. Wasn't trying to make nobody feel bad. I just had my family in my home for the first time, and it felt so good and uplifted me. I spent so much money getting everyone tested, but it felt worth it. I wasn't trying to offend anyone. And then the last tweet I'm going to highlight is me especially. And everyone that works around me get tested literally 4 times a week. I'm in the middle of work, and every time we clock in, we must get tested. There was another incident with another celebrity, although I have no idea what she does. Rita Ora.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
She apologized because she broke UK's lockdown rules for having a quote unquote small gathering for her 30th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley, what is the deal? Like, so are they going to just do these parties and then just say sorry when they get caught?
It's almost like, just asking for, going ahead and doing what you want to do and then asking for forgiveness later for sure. But I guess I'll say, yes, at least in Rita Ora's case, it's not like she posted this on social, right? Like, it was the PAX who caught her, took pictures, police were called. That was a little different situation versus Cardi kind of putting herselse out there.
That's the thing. It's like, Cardi, why did you post that? I saw videos. It was a lot of people doing these TikTok dances. I'm like,
because again, it's going back to the whole Kim K thing, right? Like, you're a celebrity. Yes. You know that there's increased scrutiny that comes with that. Many people, I'm sure, broke COVID restrictions during the holiday, but most people are not celebrities. So we don't get followed. No one cares as much. We don't have to issue public apologies. So, to a certain extent with these stories, I feel like those who live in glass houses can't throw stones. And I'm one of those people because I did travel. So I will choose to not say too much, but I would just say,
but did you have 37 people in your house?
I did not. But again, I've taken risks. And so I just feel like, I can't go too hard on anybody who is doing certain things and still, make it seem like I'm not doing anything. But again, I will say, if I were a celebrity, I definitely would not be posting things on social media because people look at you as a role model. People are looking to you for whoever, for guidance. I don't look to celebs for guidance, but if you do, I understand. And then the last thing I'll say that made me a little upset about the Rita Ora story is that they're basically saying it's not even going to be her who's really going to be punished. It's going to be the restaurant. They're facing a 10,000 pound penalty. Mm-hmm. And that to me is just kind of messed up, right? Because maybe Rita's going to pay it on their behalf, but I just feel like if I was at restaurant and I decided to take this risk for you, probably by request, like, ma'am, I'm going to need you to step up then if I get charged a penalty for it. But whatever, I guess.
And again, I'm not trying to blast Cardi B for her age. I'm not trying to be ageist in that way, but
Kim did it and Kim's 40, so
exactly. But I guess what I was going to be funny, but I do feel like it's such a young person thing to do is to post everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to get scrutiny. You cannot tell me she didn't think that, she wasn't going to get the type of backlash.
Maybe she was drinking some sauce at the time. Every now and again, we get a little tipsy during the holidays and the Twitter fingers get to go.
I guess.
I'm just giving her a little grace. Maybe it's some alcohol. As I said, that tequila gets me going every time. So I just put my phone down in the other room during those times,
Exactly.
But to your point, Delora, it is very valid. Very valid.
And to your last point about drinking, I just go to sleep. Okay. All right, so we're going to go into some microdoses this week. All right, so the first microdose is we're kind of going back a little bit, and we're going to talk about Mrs. Larsa Pippen and Malik Beasley. Jesus. So these two were caught walking hand in hand the other day, and the reason why this became such such an uproar on social media is because not even about their age difference, because it's over 20 years. Like an over 20-year age difference between the two of them. Malik is married.
Got a whole wife, and a whole child.
Who was blindsided. And according to reports, Malik even went as far as to tell his wife that he was unable to come home recently.
Ooh.
And
he on that Tristan trash bag behavior. Boy, stop. Stop it.
Ashley.
The disrespect.
What are your initial reaction when you heard this news?
The disrespect. So, you were the first person that I sent this article to when I saw it.
Yes.
And again, the mess. Like, it makes me almost side with the Kardashians now in that Larsa, why are you so messy? Like, I'm not understanding if you have no boundaries. I saw her response on, what was it, Instagram or whatever, where she said, don't believe everything you see on social media. Even salt looks like sugar. Like, stop. I'm not going to call you out your name, ma'am, because that would be disrespectful. But let me just say, you are playing with fire. You need to stop playing with people's husbands. You need to stop trying to break up families. Even your own son is being, Scottie Pippen Jr. is having to make statements and saying, listen, I'm focusing on myself. Like,
Malik is only like 4 years older than he is. He's only like...
It's not even the age difference, right? Because again, if she were a man, this wouldn't be a big deal, what have you. It's the disrespect in that he is a married man. He does have a family. So regardless of, it reminds me of the whole situation, and we haven't talked about this on the pod, but with Eddie Murphy's ex-wife and Leela Rashawn's husband, and that whole thing of, I didn't know he was still married. I was told it was a different situation. Like,
that was a mess, and she knew it.
It was so messy.
Yes.
And it's just, again, like, whatever that man may be telling you about his situation is unfortunate. If you in that moment thought maybe he was single, what have you, then that should have been the statement you put out, right? Is I am not involved in this man's marriage in any way. We're just friends, whatever, even though who holds hands if you're a grown man and you're a grown woman and you're not doing anything with one another.
And with that kiss, they knew somebody was taking pictures. Like, you couldn't tell me. Anyway, I'm
even talking about now back to the Larsa Pippen situation like how is it not what it looks like when you guys are seen holding hands and you're not wearing a bra? And
I was just about to say what she had on proved that they were not just friends holding hands.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
But I did find this on people.com. The headline: Married Malik Beasley asked Larsa Pippen on date via Instagram comments 1 week before their outing.
Oh,
and yes. So it gets juicier. So she posts a bit of a, thirst trap on Instagram, and he wrote the following in her comments: I just want to take you out on a date and treat you like a queen. That doesn't sound like a married man to me.
Oh, wow. I'm speechless. I am speechless. Again, the disrespect, like when his wife said, I don't even know who this man is. Like, it's easy to be on the outside looking in and think like, maybe there were signs, or maybe he's just been trash and, she's with him for X, Y, or Z. But the point is,
married, Ashley.
Right. The point is they got married, right? And you took vows. It's so upsetting. It upsets me so deeply. And it's not even my life and my situation.
I know. I will say though, my initial reaction to it all, when I saw the headline, when I saw the picture, especially, I was thinking to myself, how sad. Larsa, no, this ain't a good look.
She looks thirsty, doesn't she?
I mean,
I'm going to pour some more of my wine on that. She looking a little thirsty.
Speechless. I just literally thought, how sad. Mm-hmm. And I'll just leave it at that.
You a grown woman, Larsa. You grown. But I guess mess may not know any age. So.
Preach. All right.
Stay away from my husband. If I ever get one. That's all I got to say. I'll cut you.
So let's talk about some more drama before we get to a little bit more wholesome microdose. Dancing with the Stars. They've had a lot going on in the headlines recently.
Y'all can't see me, but I'm bouncing because I love
Yes. So let's first talk about the finale.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay, boo.
The winner of this year's Dancing with the Stars was Kristen and her boy. What's his name again? Artem.
And I love Artem.
Yes.
But it was Caitlin Bristow from The Bachelor and Bachelorette.
Oh, did I say Kristen? Caitlin. Oh,
yeah, Caitlin Bristow.
Forgive me.
No,
Thank
it's all
you.
good. Who I had thought, remember we talked about this in previous episodes.
Yes.
I did think that she was a beautiful dancer.
Yes.
But did I think she
experienced.
deserved to win? No.
Never.
Neve.
All
Let
day,
me be clear.
every day.
And Jenna should have won Dancing with the Stars flat out.
Period. Did you see the shade that Neve had though?
I didn't see it. What did he say?
So in like the interviews post the announcement, he was like, yeah, I did great for a non-ABC affiliate contestant.
Oh.
He was salty too. He deserved it. He deserved it. And
Neve,
so
that may be a good point, Neve. Business.
It's excellent. And me being a, longtime Dancing with the Stars fanatic, a lot of bachelors, a lot of ABC former soap people, a lot of, even Disney affiliates, you know what I mean? So
the reason why we're bringing this up, guys, if you're not aware, is that Dancing with the Stars airs on ABC and The Bachelor and Bachelorette also air on ABC. So it's very convenient that the winners are going to be people who are already a part of the franchise, and ABC is owned by Disney.
Yes.
So, it's definitely a very valid point, Neve, because again, him and Jenna, I didn't necessarily think that their last dance was their strongest, but I still enjoyed it. The dance, the singing in the rain moment.
The freestyle is usually the best, and sometimes it's really interesting because some celebrities usually go all out, do whatever they want, usually incorporates dances of today, and then sometimes they have dances that incorporate all the things that they learned in their time on Dancing with the Star. So I thought it was very interesting that the choice to go with like a more jazzy dance or what did they call it? Is not Broadway? Is it Broadway? It was kind of like jazz / Broadway type of performance. So, but I enjoyed it. Honestly, out of everyone's freestyle, I did enjoy both Neve and
Caitlin.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to give my final thoughts as a whole on the season real quick, because
please.
Again, this was my very first season of the show. Again, I absolutely loved it. I am a fan now, and I will be watching in future seasons. I did end up going back, by the way, and watching one of Zendaya's performances. She was excellent.
Actually,
on her performance.
You have no idea.
Oh my goodness.
No idea.
I was like, I'm so sad I missed your season, Z. Like, I need to find all the dances and watch them again. Yes, and it was so like it was the I can't think of the name of the dance, but it was excellent.
Hustle?
Anyway, no, it was the hustle.
Argentine tango is
yes,
usually my favorite.
It was the Argentine tango. Thank you. That's what it was. But anyway, I digress. So for this season, I will say I was rooting so hard for our favorite. I can't think of her name. All of a sudden, little chick from Disney.
Sky.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of her name.
No worries.
I voted for Sky. Let me tell you who I voted for. I voted for Sky, and I've never voted for anything in my life.
Girl,
I have never voted. I was texting the names to the number. That's how invested I was.
I love it.
So I voted for Sky, I voted for Nelly, and I voted for Neve. You know why I voted for Sky and Nelly, because I'm always rooting for everybody black. I did not expect Nelly to go as far as he did.
They also were passing out tins like candy because Nelly did not deserve some of those tins towards the end.
They definitely were passing out tins like candy. I will say I am so proud of how far that he went, especially, given
he was amazing. He was fun to watch. Yeah.
His performances were always fun to watch, but I will say I was very...
He tried.
He did. He improved. He improved.
That doesn't always happen with male contestants.
I was very sad the week that Johnny got eliminated, just because I thought that Johnny was so strong, right? I felt like it was just because he didn't have the fandom behind him the way that a lot of other people did. Yes. Yeah, so that was a disappointment. But again, my 3 that I definitely put in my votes for, and my ultimate pick was Neve. Neve, do your thing. I hope you get on Broadway, baby, because you were amazing.
He could do it. He was amazing. And overall, I did enjoy this season. Again, my favorites, Johnny Weir, Sky, Nelly, and then unexpectedly Neve. And I loved, what was her name? Was it Justina?
Oh yeah, Justina Machado. Amazing.
And I loved her joy in her performance. And even Jeannie before she had to unfortunately drop out. Yeah. So it was a fun season. I guess it's not one of my top seasons because my person didn't win, but that honestly, real talk, in the past, there would be some amazing, I'm going to flat out say it, Black celebrities who would get the runner-up. And it would be like, so this isn't necessarily the first time that my fave hasn't won, but like most notably, Maya should have won. She did not.
I didn't even know Maya was on the show, did I? Oh
yes,
and Case they were of the X harder is still one of my favorite songs. Girl. I heard Case of the X come on the radio. Boom.
I screamed when they played that at the end of Insecure.
We talked about that. It was such. Listen, guys, not to go down a rabbit hole. Sorry, but y'all know Case of the X still goes, and we're over here drinking a little bit too. Yes, it was. Listen, whenever that drops.
And then Mel B. Those are the 2 most notorious runner-ups.
And Mel B is a freaking pop star.
Come on. Oh, I don't even think Zendaya won either. She's another runner-up.
She didn't win because they talked about it in the comments. Like, can't believe she didn't win that season. Again, she was excellent.
Yes, but in any case, fun season. And then let's talk about some of the relationship news out of the season. So it's worth noting that Chriselle Stiles from Selling Sunset, her partner was having some relationship issues. We kind of alluded to this previously. And a lot of people speculated that she was probably the reason for the split, because the wife claimed that Gabe, I think that's his name.
Is Glib?
Yeah, because I think he's like Russian or something like that. So yes, thank you.
We have some hard names to get through on this.
Girl, I need to. Girl, like I did not.
Again, sorry if we butcher anybody's names. You know, I'm used to give me a Jessica, give me a Ashley, give me a Delora. You know, I don't. Apologies. It's all love.
So, she alluded to his infidelity through their, like, I think it was like 15-year marriage or something like that. So everybody assumed that it was Chriselle. Well, she insisted that it was not, and he did too. But that's like, duh, that's what you do, right? Even when
he does look like a living white Disney prince.
He does.
Just, you know, he's quite beautiful.
Whenever they do Disney Week, he's always a prince, like 9 times out of 10. I love it.
He's quite beautiful.
And so, you know, even when you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you deny, right?
All I do is lie.
But it just came out, Instagram official, that Chriselle is seeing KO.
Plot twist.
And they are all hugged up and kissy, and it brings me joy because honestly, if you're gonna rebound with a dancer, please. Thank you. Okay.
And let's just be clear, this is a chocolatey, beautiful Black man that she has decided to rebound with. So, Chriselle, I ain't mad at you, girl. You and another one of my girlfriends sent it to me, and I was like, listen, Chriselle about to be having some cornrows on the next season of Selling Sunset. Like, y'all just ain't about to be ready. But, you know, we talked about the fact that I was hoping she was going to find love on the show.
Yes,
and you mentioned Dan.
often.
Right,
yes.
you mentioned mentioned then that her partner was married. So I was like, oh, that's unfortunate, because again, we've talked about how messy her divorce was. We've talked about one of the reasons why we can't get down with Kevin on This Is Us is because of that situation. Yes. So I am happy for Chrishell, even if this is just a fling, girl, live your best life.
Live your best life.
Good time.
Yes. They both clear because they had to be on the show. They said that they started hanging out after they both were eliminated, and because everybody stays in the bubble, they become quote unquote a family.
I bet Anne H is salty because I think she wanted her some Keo as well.
She wanted a bite so badly.
She was all
she did not even hide it. It was hilarious, Ashley. Like this woman, I'm like, you know, she's in a committed relationship, but she was all over that man.
She wanted her some Keo.
So our final microdose today, we're going to talk about the hot Chocolate Nutcracker, the wonderful documentary. Debbie Allen, Shondaland's first Netflix project since making the move.
Yes,
and
Shonda.
What did you think, Ashley? Because I loved it.
First of all, where have I been all my life that this wasn't even on my radar in terms of this performance that Debbie does every year? Like, it just was not, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the fact that for me personally, I just now am starting to understand and give Debbie her flowers, because
all of them.
I was not aware of all the various projects and the impact she's had on my life in terms of her impact on the culture. You know,
absolutely.
I appreciate this drop for that reason, for sure.
Yes. I told my one girlfriend, I'm like, you know, Debbie is simply that bitch. You know what I mean? She said, I choreographed 10 Academy Awards.
Listen, 10? Again, I don't think, because she has not been in front of the camera as much as Felicia Rashad has been. Yes. Again, I think in terms of that, I just never had seen or paid that much attention to her career. Where have I been all my life? Like, she is my shero. She's one of my sheroes now.
World. After the first season, she came in, she took it over. She directed and produced every episode after that.
She is the reason why the show was as great as it was, because she took the writers, the production, everybody to HBCUs to get a real cultural experience and really take the storylines that were really happening and put it into the show. So she is definitely fundamental to the success. And I just finished rewatching A Different World. So
yes, she's a proud Howard alum. And one of the things that they didn't talk about it in the documentary, which I guess is not necessarily on topic, but because she read a book in the library in Howard, she learned about Amistad. And
crazy.
She was responsible for bringing that story to Steven Spielberg, and then she was a producer of the film.
It took her years to get this movie done, guys. It took her years. Steven Spielberg was the first one who really was like, okay, let's go for it.
Yes.
And let's make this happen. And that came up again. I think we talked about it in another documentary that is on Netflix currently, and I can never think of the name of it. But when I do,
They Need Us or something.
When they I can't. I wish I could think of it right now. I apologize.
Yes,
but we'll post it out somewhere so you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but back to the Nutcracker, the hot chocolate Nutcracker.
I was gonna say, you asked me my impression, and I went off on a tangent. I thought that Debbie was raw in this documentary. I said, she said, forget these cameras. You will be fired if you showing up to my stuff late. Okay. Y'all may just be kids, but I'm not playing with y'all. And I appreciated it, because a lot of them, you know, they talked about the fact that a lot of them, you know, would never have the means to get this experience otherwise. So, you know, I think, you know, to give them that, not only that experience, but that discipline, that drive, that focus was so invaluable. And some of those success stories that came from that. Listen, I am here for a Black ballerina. Yes. I am here for, you know, the artistic experiences that these kids are getting to have. I appreciate Debbie and her husband for doing this for the past 20 freaking years. Like,
yes, it's beautiful.
It's just a beautiful thing to see how much she gives back to the community. It's very inspiring.
I absolutely loved it. I grew up in dance. I always tell people I was a fine and performing arts student, child. Like, I didn't do sports. So I did music, played the clarinet, and I danced for many, many years. And so
I learned something new about you every day, because I had no idea. Listen, I played the trumpet, so right here with your sister, and I did tap and ballet. So you know.
Did you? I did. I
did.
did dance. Most of it was contemporary, but I learned all the things, and so it was very nostalgic. It's nostalgic for me. Like it was absolutely wonderful. I loved every minute of it. I absolutely had teachers / choreographers that yelled at us like that at a very young age. So for me, it was like, yes, all of this. I loved it so much. And
it also reminded me of like my family members. Like, you know what I mean? Like when maybe it's a difference too in culture sometimes too, right? Like we're Black.
Yes.
Black aunts, parent figures, elders do not play. So it's not something that is out of the norm when you're a child to be talked to in these ways. So sorry if this was like shocking to anybody who may not be used to this experience. To me, it was like, that's what y'all need. That's what you get. You know what I mean? It was normal. So, yeah.
So exciting news. One of the young ladies who was featured in the documentary is going to be starring on a Netflix show.
What is it? Pretty Little Things?
Tiny Pretty Things, and
Pretty Things,
and it's premiering December 14th, and it's the Kylie Jefferson. I believe she was one of the. I think she was the fairy, the plum fairy, or
and she's the one who had gotten injured too, and talked about how being asked to come back was what helped to re-inspire her to get back into it. So again, obviously, the success stories from this just shows that the work that Debbie is doing is so valuable, and that it's giving these girls opportunities and boys, because there are some boys as well that are in there.
Oh, so impressive! Even though the one who was like the first Nutcracker, he's went on to perform in New York, and then the young man who the Asian young man, he was so cute and he was killing it. I was just like, oh my god!
And he's on TV. He starred in a TV show,
Young Sheldon.
On CBS. Yeah, on CBS.
And really quick, I had known about the Hot Chocolate Nutcracker. I didn't know it was a fundraiser for her school, but I knew about it because she always has like. Keeping it real, a Black celebrity like featured, and one year it was Raven. She was like one of the special guest stars of it, and in the documentary they showed Tashina Arnold and a couple of other people. So
yeah, it was Tashina, and it was Gina from Martin. Sorry Tisha, I don't know why we always call you Gina, but because I just watched the Soul Train Music Awards we were hosting, and I was still calling her Gina. Shout out to the Soul Train Music Awards this year. Y'all did y'all thing, quarantine and all. That was a whole vibe. Like I wanted to be in there, sitting there listening to the music.
Was it better than BET? Because I was so super impressed with BET this year.
I can't even remember the BET Awards at this point, to be honest.
Wait.
It's been so long.
So much has happened in this year. It happened in the middle of like obviously quarantine, but the civil unrest too.
Girl, I can't even remember the BET Awards at this point. I would just say the Soul Train, like, it was very intimate. People were kind of in the audience. It just felt like, kind of like almost a jazz or a music lounge type. Nice. It was just I loved it. And Lucky Day and Babyface before my favorite song, Shoulda. Like, I was just jamming. Anyway, shout out to Soul Train. Y'all did y'all thing this year. COVID and all.
All right, Ashley. So that's all for Hot Topics in Microdoses. It is now time for the recap. What are we recapping this week?
Exciting. Oh my goodness. We are recapping The Queen's Gambit on Netflix.
I'm squealing. Show,
guys, if you are not aware, this show has been major for like 2 months strong now. In terms of...
Oh, I'm not going to spill the beans. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. So today, all we're covering is episodes 1 through 3 for the sake of time. So this is just part 1. Stick with us next week for part 2, which is going to be episodes 4 through 7. These are hour-longish episodes I wrote down, because some of them, like one of them was like 42 minutes, one of them was like an hour and 5 minutes. Yeah. So don't worry though, guys, you'll roll through them because everybody does. Yes. So this was dropped on Netflix on October 23rd. A quick summary: set during the Cold War era, orphan chess prodigy Beth Harmon struggles with addiction and a quest to become the greatest chess player in the world. This was created by Oscar-nominated screenwriter Scott Frank and BAFTA-nominated screenwriter Alan Scott. It is based on a 1983 novel by the same name, The Queen's Gambit, by author Walter Tevis. A little quick brief info for you guys as well. Following its debut in October, The Queen's Gambit, according to Netflix, became the streaming platform's #1 show in 63 countries and its most watched limited scripted series ever, with 62 million member accounts tuning into the show in the first 28 days. So again, when we say this thing has been major and has been in Netflix's top 10 since it dropped, I mean, it has been a phenom for the platform.
Absolutely.
Let's get into this main cast. So we have Anya Taylor-Joy, who stars as our main character, Beth Harmon. You may recognize her from films like Split and The Witch. You have playing young Beth, Isla Johnston. You have Bill Camp as Mr. Scheibel, who has numerous credits.
A lot.
You have Moses Ingram, who plays Jolene, who
newcomer.
The black character in the film, who you have to see it and understand, but I appreciated her.
Yes, fun fact about her.
Go ahead.
She's gonna be in the film
Lady
adaptation
Macbeth.
of
I knew it.
She's not Lady Macbeth, but she's in Macbeth and starring Denzel Washington. So I'm super excited about that.
I thought they said Lady Macbeth. I must have read wrong. Maybe it was Frances McDormand who was playing Lady Macbeth.
Frances is Lady Macbeth.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that.
Fair,
I knew that's what you were about to say.
Yeah, it is Lady in something. I forgot, but no, Frances is Lady Macbeth in that version.
I tell you, we be on such the same wavelength. Sometimes it really freaks me out. Anyway, we also have Christiane Seidel as Mrs. Deerdorf, who is kind of the head mistress at the orphanage that Beth goes to. We have Marielle Helmner, who plays Alma Wheatley, who is her adopted mother.
Mama.
We have Marcin Dorosinski, apologies if I didn't pronounce that correctly, as Borgoff, aka the Russian. We have Thomas Brody Sangster as Benny Watts, who you may recognize from Love Actually, Game of Thrones, and the Maze Runner trilogy.
Wait. And I love him from Nanny McPhee.
Yes, he sure was in Nanny McPhee. What's funny is when I kept watching him, I was like, I remember you as a small boy. Why do I keep picturing you as a child? Anyway,
that man is 30 years old, by the way.
I mean, he had the mustache and everything. I believe it. I just kept imagining. I just kept imagining, still the childlike version. We have Chloe Pieri, who plays Alice Harmon, who is Beth's mother. We have Harry Melling, who plays Harry Beltic, who you may definitely recognize from Harry Potter. I was predisposed to hate him, by the way, because he was horrid.
Was he?
In Harry Potter as his cousin. Yeah, he was not nice.
I don't really know Harry Potter very well.
Oh, girl. That was a whole era of my life. I never read the books, guys. Let's be clear. Not to say that I wouldn't, but I was diehard for those movies. Saw every single one in theaters the weekend that it came out. So, I was one of those.
He was also the bad guy in the Old Guard, by the way.
So he's just a bad man all around. He sure was. He was the one who was trying to get them for, their DNA. And he sure was. Yeah. Predisposed to hate him is a valid statement. We also have Jacob Fortune Lloyd as Towns. And we have, last but not least, Matthew and Russell Lewis as the twins, Matt and Mike. So moving on to some reviews, Delora. Rotten Tomatoes, girl, this has 100% critic score, 96% audience score, and I always give the Google users some love. Google users like this 98% of the time as well. So listen, it is beloved by audiences and critics alike, except I did read some reviews that were not so kind. One of them I want to highlight, which is Sarah Miller of The New Yorker.
Was it a feminist perspective?
You tell me. So her biggest criticism of this and caveat, she read the book. So anytime you read a book and then you watch the film or television adaptation, you're probably going to feel some type of way because most of the time it doesn't necessarily live up to that standard, right? So her biggest criticism is that the lead actress is too pretty to have played this role of Beth Harmon. Because specifically, I guess in the book, it was stated multiple times how unattractive Beth was supposed to be. And I think her main gripe with it was what Chess did for Beth was give her confidence and make her comfortable in her own skin. This actress exuded confidence the entire film. So she felt like that was the main conflict within the book that you just don't feel or get from the show. And her quote was, if she didn't play chess and weren't such a bitch, it would be Emily in Paris. Girl, we just recapped Emily in Paris. Give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on that statement real quick. You know, I knew that was going to hit you because I'm like, oh.
First of all, I love that so much. I can't say I necessarily agree with her because one, I did not read the book, right?
Right, me either.
But what I will counter with that statement, I have watched several interviews featuring the actress, and she mentioned that she didn't want Beth to be ugly. Like when it came to her fashion, she wanted her to embrace fashion for the era because she didn't want her Beth to just be good at chess and not be attractive. Because
interesting.
There, you know, that's a common stereotype, right? When women are
good at something,
whether especially for the science or math or, you know, things, brainiac type.
Shout out to all the women in STEM. We see you.
There's this assumption that they don't care about their appearance, they don't care about how they look, and she didn't want that for Beth. And so she talked about how she collaborated with the director, and she appreciated that collaboration, and she felt like she was able to make something special with this particular character. So
okay, well, appreciate that insight for sure. And again, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, so let's get into ours.
Yes.
So what grade did you give this show?
I wrote A++++++.
Oh, this got an A+. Okay,
yes.
okay.
I loved it. And so without any spoilers, I thoroughly enjoyed, I thought they did a great job highlighting the period, right?
We're in the 50s and 60s.
Yes, in terms of fashion, in terms of it was true escapism, right? You almost wish that it was a real life, right? But it was a well-written novel, right? And
well, I don't just because of where Black people were at the time, but to your point, if I, otherwise, sure.
No, honestly, I think that's probably why I was able to enjoy it more, because it wasn't real life, because I didn't have to worry about any Black person being slighted. Even though we know that time period.
I mean, I did write a quote from Alma that got to me a little bit, but we'll get there. There. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
but
no,
for the most part, I started watching it. Honestly, real talk.
Yeah.
I think I had just finished Girlfriends. I finished my binge of that. And I was having a hard time committing to another show. I don't know if you ever experienced this. You have your list and you kind of don't want to click on certain things that are on your list, even though they've been on your list for probably forever, right? I legit, that was my first time pressing the shuffle mode on Netflix. And of course it went to the most popular show they had to offer. And I will like to add a caveat. I read somewhere that Netflix claims people watch things for if you clicked on it and stay on it for a ridiculous number, 2 minutes, they'll count that as a watch.
So that's the whole controversy to speak to, guys, too, as far as the statistics. That's why I say as reported by Netflix, right? Because that's not the standard in the television industry and in ratings for how you document who is watching. So Netflix does their thing, and that they are entitled to do that because they don't have any accountability. But yes, it is. If you've watched something for 2 minutes, then you've watched it, you know.
And I will say, because I pressed that shuffle feature for the first time, of course it went to the most popular show.
Those algorithms.
It had to offer, and I let it stay. And I already started watching it late at night. I kept watching it until like 3:00 in the morning.
Oh,
that's how
got you like that.
That's how intense it was for me. And then I finished it the next day. Like I think I literally got to like episode 3 at that point, and finished it the following day. And that was my first time watching it. Obviously, I'm rewatching it for the pod, but
right.
I thought it was fantastic. Yes. So what's your thought?
Yeah. So I gave it a B plus, not an A plus. I did. And I thought about this grade.
Okay.
Again, I think I tend to stick to my criteria of what moves me. Yes. Are things that I experience on a deeper level. And as much as I enjoyed this experience with Beth, there was not emotion. I didn't have an emotional connection to the material the way I have with certain other TV shows and films, right? Like I enjoyed the experience with Beth. I'm not a chess player whatsoever. So I was Googling a lot to try to understand a lot of pieces, but neither here nor there, because I think whether you get into chess or not, you can appreciate the journey. You can appreciate when someone is an underdog and is underestimated and they continue to triumph and they continue to press forward, especially as a woman in that era who, you know, never was going to be seen or valued until she proved her worth. I appreciated the story, but again, it didn't touch me in certain ways. And that's why I gave it the B plus. I think from a storytelling perspective, it was excellent. To your point, I love the sets. I love the costumes. I love the feel. But you know, B plus it's gonna have to be for me on this one.
Really. And for me, I was just learning how to play chess this year. David was teaching me.
You told me that.
It's such a fascinating game. And so honestly, watching this movie gave me confidence in my chess game. Like I felt like, oh, I know what that means. And obviously I am nowhere near a grandmaster, but it was really fascinating for me. And I will say this, the way she feasted on those men's egos, it was beautiful. Quite a delight.
It was very satisfying.
Very satisfying. So I give it an A plus because I just loved it, and I loved the games. I mean, it's almost like a sports game, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, those sports movies.
She says in it too, like chess is not just about competition. It can be beautiful. She ends up saying that at some point, and I agree with that. Like I think there seemed like there was such a level of, even if somebody beats you, there's a level of appreciation and respect for the art form of chess. I guess I should say. So, you know, again, even though I don't get into chess, I appreciate competitive sports. I can appreciate anything that's competitive, but at the same time, I thought that the way they handled everything seemed so interesting from that perspective of like, oh, this isn't just a game. This is something people really see as an art form to a certain extent. And to your point too, Delora, A plus it is if you loved it. I love that you loved it that much. It was number one for so long for me on Netflix. I forgot to say that. That's why I decided to watch it, because I was like, what is all this hype about? Why has this been number one on my Netflix for weeks? So good job, Netflix. You got me.
Yes. The last thing I want to say before we go into the actual recap and spoiler alert, I just recently found out that chess was highly popular during that time and a source of sport for Americans because of the Cold War, right? Like the best chess players in the world were from Russia. And so if you have this world competition and have an American in it, then it's like, you know, like the hockey, like the, you know, all the things, you know, and so that heightened competition.
They also mentioned that chess is back on the rise in terms of popularity this year because of COVID and because people are in their homes.
And this show, the amount of chess board purchases have been skyrocketing.
Let's hope that girls also feel inspired that you can do this too, baby.
Absolutely.
So, spoiler alert, we are moving into the meat of our recap. So if you have not watched this yet, please feel free to tune out and come back to us when you have. So, Delora, let's get into your initial impressions, your themes, all that jazz.
Yes. So a lot of more of the same. I enjoyed the storytelling. I felt like it was inspiring. I enjoyed the suspense of the games, and there was an elegance to the to Beth that I really enjoyed. Of course, girl power, and like I mentioned before, I've been known to be a ball buster from here to there, so I appreciate game recognized game. I was here for it. What about you, Ashley?
Again, when we're synced up, it's crazy. I literally have down girl power. The theme for this, because again, it comes down to the idea that this was something that the societal expectation was that this was not something she was supposed to do. It's not something she was supposed to excel at, and she did, and it made it so satisfying because not only do I always root for an underdog,
yes,
I also root for my ladies.
Yes.
So Beth, I'm proud of you. Do your thing, girl. It made me start looking up female grandmasters, and there is one that I looked up who had similar not similar story to Beth, but just made me more interested in her story because of Beth. So again, anything that can help with diversity and helping people to understand that they are more than the limits that society has placed upon them.
Yes.
I'm all for that. So again,
Preach.
Beth Harmon, do your thing, baby. And on that note, let's move into episode 1, which is titled aptly Openings.
Yes.
So I'm going to give a quick summary, and then Delora and I are going to get into our highlights of the episode. So in episode 1, we meet main character Beth Harmon. Real name is Elizabeth. She goes by Beth. She loses her mother in a car crash tragically at the age of 8 and is sent off to an orphanage. She ends up bonding with another orphan there named Jolene and with the custodian who shows her how to play chess, which she shows an exceptional skill in. She also, though, unfortunately becomes a drug addict, Delora. She becomes dependent on pills or vitamins, as Jolie called them, that the orphanage was handing out to kids on a daily basis.
Literally.
So let's get into some of the highlights. Let's get into some of the highlights of this episode. On that note, so the show, the first scene of this show opens with adult Beth. And it's Paris in 1967, and you see her, she seems frazzled, she's getting out of a bathtub, she seems hungover, she's popping pills, she's drinking alcohol. You see her racing to this match. Did that kind of set the stage for you when you first saw this, or were you like, where are we going with this? What's happening?
I had no idea what was going on. Obviously, she was going through something, but I was really intrigued because she was like, oh no, let me hurry up, and I still look amazing, and then bust through the doors and have all those cameras and the guy waiting for her. I'm like, oh, is she gonna be ready, like, or is she just that amazing or something? So
yeah, it really set the stage for immediately pulls you into the story because you're coming into a place where you're like, what is actually going on? What is this story going to be about? So I think that it was a great way to kind of open it with the kind of flash forward to the present. And then we do a flashback to the past and we kind of see, Alice, who is Beth's mother, in this car crash. Beth was also in the car. You see her mother's dead body, and her mother appears to have been intentional in crashing the car because the last word she says to Beth, you see, is like, close your eyes.
Yes.
They show that there was seemed like some mental instability there, potentially drug use there, but also, Delora, her mother seemed like she may have been incredibly smart. She had a PhD,
girl,
and worked in the math department at Cornell. So that starts to set the stage for maybe where Beth is going to get her skills from and her intelligence from.
Yes.
So what were your first impressions of kind of Beth's mother in this circumstance that we're finding her in as a young child?
So like you mentioned, she seems very she seems unwell. And the only part that I questioned, I put in my notes, I put, is it due to bad love or is it due to mental illness? You know, and obviously bad love can lead to mental illness, or there could be something that was already there. You know, you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
And you see her mom arguing with this guy named Paul. I'm assuming that is Beth's father, but at this point,
Right.
the mom wanted nothing to do with him. So it was a little alarming. She seemed erotic. I mean, he made mention of, you know, you're living in a trailer, so that just automatically makes you think, okay, this isn't normal. And
Yeah.
then the next thing you see
And as
is,
if he had been trying to find them, right? Like she had been
yes,
disappearing with
yes.
potentially their child.
And when she started, you know, burning things, I mean, I feel like in every woman's life, you know, you feel like burning up some stuff, but what was the source of it? I wonder. So, I mean, it was very apparent what her mom was going through something. But yeah, it was just intriguing. If anything, it just drew me in more on you know, what to expect and how it's going to impact such a young girl like Beth.
Right. Because it just seems so tragic to meet her under these circumstances,
Yes.
you know. And they mentioned when she was getting sent to the orphanage, like, oh, there's no reference to a father. Maybe he was one of those who like got caught up in this life or whatever. So you're almost wondering at this point, like, was he married? Did something else happen? Like, why wasn't he able to take her after her mother died?
Yes.
So we cut to, you know, getting to the orphanage. One of the parts that upset me, and maybe it's because I have had very long hair over the course of my life, why did they have to cut this child's hair like that? That upset me so much.
Yeah.
And burn her clothes.
I was more upset over the burn clothes piece of it all because, like, we are past the spoiler alert. They make reference much later down the road that her mom put that together for her. And so I'm like, you're not going to leave her with anything. But granted, we don't know what was on it or anything like that. But I
mean, but y'all ain't got no washing machines with it. Like, you can't take that out and scrub that down for her. You got to burn this child's clothes. Like, again,
exactly.
It just was so, because again, you're taking her away from everything she's ever known. Yes. And it just feels so intense. And I think the cutting the hair too, there was a movie back in the 90s called Curly Sue. Yes. And I remember at one point when she got taken away from her family, they cut her hair, and again, she was attached to her, and she literally said they cut my hair and was in tears. So literally, I have that written down as like, that's the Curly Sue, they cut my hair moment. Even though Beth didn't seem affected the way that she did in that film, it affected me, right? I was like, you're taking everything from this child. It's too much. Yeah.
And I can see that because in really quick to the Curly Sue reference, it's almost like it cut her joy. Like it just, I got
hurtful.
That. Yeah.
Like, geez, why do you need to give this girl a bowl cut? I just don't understand. So she ends up again bonding with the custodian, but it wasn't an immediate bond, right, Delora?
It was not. No.
She had to prove herself in this relationship. He said things like, I don't play with strangers.
Yes.
Girls do not play chess.
Yes.
They even had a brief falling out because, and this is the second or third time I've heard this term in the last few months, she called him a cocksucker. Yes. I'm like, is this a diss that we say? Because I've never said that a day in my life. But It caused him to lock her out. Because the reason why she was going down there, guys who are listening, was that she started beating the erasers because she was so good in school. She was finishing her assignments early because she was already showing how intelligent she was, right? Yes. Like she went to class, she would finish a math assignment before all the other kids. She'd just be sitting there. So she ended up going down to the basement. The custodian was down there playing chess. She's intrigued. She ends up, learning the way that the pieces move without ever even having a conversation, just by observing. And Dolores, she beats him by their third game.
Yes.
What
and
did
he was
you
like,
think
have you been
about
practicing? It was, I love, that's what I did enjoy about the show. I loved how we got a chance to get a glimpse of what was going on in her mind. And unfortunately, it was after her taking her quote unquote magic vitamins.
Those green pills.
But I just love that part. And so when he was like, have you been practicing? And she's like, no, I've been going through all the moves in my mind. I don't know. It was just so fascinating. And I was so engaged. I loved it. I loved it.
She was brilliant. That next thing I did have was about those green pills. So again, the staff at this orphanage is drugging these kids. They get 2 pills a day. And Jolene tells her to hold on to her pill because it works better at night than it does during the day. So she starts hoarding these green pills, taking them in handfuls at night, and then is able to do her thing and play chess on the ceiling in her head at night. I have in parentheses, Lord Jesus, help this child. I was so worried.
I was so worried. And you know, my first impression when I saw this, I was like, they are really drugging these children. I was like, what year is this? This is the 60s, ain't it?
Girl.
Like they would the things they did back in the day, I'm like, it's known to be cruel today, you know, at today's measures. But I'm like, did they really think drugging these kids to keep them in control was just the way to go? Like, are you serious? And this actually happened. Like,
yeah, I fully believe it. Yeah, I fully believed it. Right? I'm like, people aren't quite that creative, right? Most things are taken from somebody's experience somewhere. That's why Get Out terrifies me the way that it does. Side note, because you know, I just feel like there has to be some truth in there somewhere. And again, the fact that, you know, you start to wonder, these adults, do they think this is right? You know, Mrs. Deardorff, when you first meet her, she seems nice, she seems hospitable, but how could you be if you're actively drugging and willfully giving these children tranquilizers, you know what I mean, to keep them sedated? It was deeply disturbing. And go ahead.
I will say I was apprehensive about everyone in this orphanage. I didn't know, especially the first time I watched it, I didn't know what type of story this was going to be, because I mean, I can't tell you how many movies or shows I've seen where people get into orphanage and you have the really evil head mistress or the staff that takes advantage of the kids in a very gross way. I was like really on edge watching it the whole time. And surprisingly, her experience wasn't ideal, obviously with losing her parents, of course, but it wasn't that bad. Like outside the drugs.
Because again, she was able to have Jolene, but I keep wondering about the one black guy because he kept touching on Jolene all the time. I was like, sir, what are your intentions? Why do you keep putting your hand on her when it's unnecessary?
A level of familiarity between the two, and I was just hoping that it was not inappropriate. And luckily we didn't go down that rabbit hole.
It didn't, but whether that comes out if there's season 2 and that comes out, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Like, again, she seemed fine, and maybe it was just a bonding of, hey, you're one of the only black kids here. Yes. You know, I'm going to look out for you type of vibe more so than anything. Because remember, he was quoting Shakespeare. Like, I was like, sir, I'm confused by your character. Anyway, I am definitely glad that she had some touch points with people that she could bond with, because it helped you feel better about her overall experience.
Yes, but I did say, I did put the fuck when they came to these vitamins. I'm like, they're calling them vitamins? You are drugging these children
with tranquilizers.
And to the point where, like you mentioned, an addiction is created. And to me, that was tragic. So I guess there's the tragedy in her stay, right, at the orphanage, in the sense of like, she shouldn't have had that level of exposure, period, to something
at that age. Because you also, I mean, you know how they say that certain people genetically are predisposed to addiction. And because we see that her mother may have been one of those individuals, obviously it was more likely that she was going to develop that. So that's what hurt me too, was maybe if she had never had these experiences, she would have been able to stay away from those things. But we'll get more to that too with her. She's also going to have a level of alcoholism, so we'll get to that too. So the custodian, because of how brilliantly she plays, ends up hooking her up with the coach of the local high school chess team. And Laura, she plays and beats him and also beats all of his students on his chess team in a simultaneous 11 players who she beat all at the same time in an hour and 20 minutes. And this child is only 9 years old.
Wow. I loved it. It was, and I loved that scene too, because at that point they gave her chocolates for, winning, and she was like, yeah, the best player was just like not that great. And it was just, I don't know. I loved it.
They left backwards pawns all over the place. I was like, well, you tell them, girl. I don't know what that means, but you tell them, Beth. So the last thing I want to touch on was, again, just the drug use. So my note was just the legalities of drugging these children and then stopping abruptly, because we see a point where they instituted this new state law to not provide the green pills anymore, which were tranquilizers, and it causes these kids to go through withdrawals. Obviously, we're seeing only really from Beth's perspective, but we see the point where she was about to go to that high school match and Jolene smuggled her a green pill so she could focus. And then in a moment of desperation, Beth leaves from a little screening of a movie they're watching, breaks into the stash, girl, takes handfuls and shoves them into her mouth and passes out and falls on the floor. And that's how we end episode 1.
Her poor kidneys. I just could not. I was really surprised by that, and horrified all at the same time. Girl. And that's an excellent point. Again, not far from what probably happened in real life, right? It's like, oh no, can't give kids tranquilizer. Let's just stop it. I don't know. It was a terrifying ending, though, which again made me want to continue my binge.
What's going to happen to this poor little drug addicted child who just fell flat out on the floor? Did you have any other highlights before I move into episode 2?
No, you touched upon everything. I guess the only thing I want to mention is they take the picture, which later means so much between her and Mr. Scheibel. And I also wanted to highlight, whenever anyone touches her or she touches them, it's always a hesitation or some type of I noticed it's like almost a major thing for her, like for her to touch someone or for someone to touch her, she looks at them like, okay, what are you doing? That was one of those moments when they took that picture and she put her little hand on his shoulder very hesitantly, and it'll later become something very, very special.
And that's an excellent point, Delora, because I guess we didn't really get into the fact that Beth, as a child, and even as an adult to a certain extent, is very standoffish. She's very solitary, besides the people that she lets directly into her orbit, again, which is Mr. Scheibel and Jolene. She's definitely one of those people who seems like she's comfortable going through life solo, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with her experiences as a child and dealing with her mother and all of that. But yeah, she's not a gregarious child. She's not an outgoing child. She's very much internal, and thankfully both the young Beth and Anya Taylor-Joy play that beautifully, right? That kind of internal, that rich internal life you experience with them that they kind of communicate through their eyes and everything else. So moving on to episode 2, titled Exchanges, a brief summary of this is we pick back up because of Beth's drug cabinet break-in, she's no longer permitted to play chess.
Yeah.
And we immediately end up seeing a flash forward to teenage Beth, who is still in the orphanage with Jolene, but quickly gets adopted by a couple who moves her to the suburbs. And it seems like a brand new life. You know, she gets her own room for the first time. Can't believe it. Like, oh my God, all this is mine, you know? But is it actually a better life, Delora? Because we see her have to confront things like high school and an absentee father. But one of the great things is that she's able to get back to chess. And that is through her own persistence, because in a little theft, as I wrote down, because she had to end up stealing. She had to end up stealing, a chess review magazine from the local corner shop, because she didn't have the money for it. Thank you, the pharmacy. And she ends up beginning chess tournament life with the Kentucky State Tournament. So let's get into our highlights. So what were your first impressions of her adopted mother and father? Because we see that the mother seems more invested in Beth than the father does, but he also does not even seem invested in his wife. Like I have written down, did Mr. Wheatley, they're the Wheatleys, by the way.
Yes.
Did Mr. Wheatley love his wife at all? He was such an asshole towards her. Yes. And she seemed almost resigned to the life that she was living, but was not happy with, right? Like we see her abusing drugs. We see her abusing alcohol. Exactly. But we also see that she seems like she's gifted in playing piano and that was a dream unfulfilled. She said she wanted to play the orchestra, but she had stage fright. She also talks about, gives us some context as to why she adopted Beth and that she had gotten pregnant and had a child. We never understand what happened to this child. I assume the child must have passed away. Yeah. But again, gives you some insight into why they adopted Beth. So what did you think of these parents and this family and this life Beth is now being moved into?
Well, my impressions on Mrs. Wheatley was that she was a desperate housewife, frankly. In terms of Mr. Wheatley, unfortunately, I feel really bad, but I was very concerned and weary of him when they were driving home. I was hoping like, oh my goodness, they're adopting an older kid. Hopefully he's not out here trying to
molest her,
abuse her in any kind of way. So my mind, unfortunately, was there. So I was trying to, check out his character. Granted, he didn't do that, but he still wasn't awesome by any stretch of the imagination. So
he dipped out real quick. I mean,
real quick. And he seemed like the type of person that might not have been physically abusive, but definitely emotionally abusive to his wife.
Yes.
And I don't know if they were the type of couple that lost their way after such a tragic loss of a child or not. So in some ways, Beth probably came in when their relationships, when their relationship was frankly in shambles.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I feel about the Whitleys. And with the mom, I didn't know how to feel about her either. I didn't know if she was going to be like, obviously she's not an evil stepmother, but in terms of like, they're only taking her in for the money kind of deals, because the way she went to the store to buy her clothes, mind you, the orphanage look was tragic, right? The look itself, but going to the clearance rack
at the top of Ben Snyder's.
Going to the clearance rack and picking out ill-fitted clothes doesn't show much care either. And so I didn't know where her mind was. I think maybe she didn't have the money to do what she needed to do, but it also didn't seem, I didn't read that initially, right? I think they had to explain that just slightly a little bit later.
Right.
But
and I agree. I think she ended up being in a financial bind, especially when her husband left, because her husband basically left and moved to the West. They live in Kentucky, and he basically goes like somewhere outside of Denver. So he just pretty much abandons her. And she's, we're in the 60s. So she doesn't have her own job. She doesn't have any way to get income. So that definitely is how I took it. But to your point, I had no idea what to think of her either, especially because she seemed so sad. And to your point, though, about maybe it was because of, possibly them losing a child, I also wondered, because of the era, was it not a marriage? Was it a marriage of convenience rather than love?
Yes. Like he had a good job. She had the, quintessential suburban life. I mean, and obviously they were well-to-do for that era, they just weren't happy together.
Right. So I did want to move us along to high school.
Yeah.
And the fact that, this is a huge shift for Beth. And when she comes into high school is brutal. Still, even in that era, she didn't have the right clothes. She's too smart. She doesn't fit in.
The haircut still the same.
The outfit, everything. And I just said, Mean Girls, you can't sit with us vibes, right? Because she instantly comes in and all the girls have on the shoes of that era, the outfits of that era. She's just really out of place. And they're even talking about like, oh, you know, there are social clubs like the Apple Pie Club, but you have to be invited. I wrote down like in high school, no offense, but I said, what in the white world? Like, help me.
Oh my God.
Help me to understand, was this the real thing? I've never heard of like invitation only social clubs back even in high school, right? This isn't a fraternity or a sorority, but you get that sense that was the dynamic.
Back in the day, all you needed was a high school education to
that's a very valid point.
So.
That's a very valid point. So that was potentially that for them. But it just seemed like y'all are going a little hard for me in high school. Doing the most.
Yeah.
What did you think about her high school experiences during this episode?
You know, typical fish out of water trope, right? It's like this new world, and how is she gonna fit in? And you know, and you got a chance to get to know more of Beth's character. Like, is she going to care to fit in, or is she going to brush it off and be her own person? You know,
she could care less.
Right. And I did love how she still shined academically. You know, she didn't shine her light, or she didn't dim her light in those moments. So, but I want to change the subject just a little bit and say the thing that I did not enjoy about this series was the time jump in terms of the age of the actor in that particular scene. Like, for example, when we did the time jump and you go from, you know, let's say Baby Beth to, you know, New Beth, I had no idea how old she was. And obviously this young woman in real life is 20 something years old, right? And then we actually see her as the grown Beth as well. I thought it was very confusing.
I can see that. It was also weird too, because the same actress played Jolene in its entirety. So it's like, how
the whole time.
Yeah, like how are we spanning all these years, you know, a decade, and the same young lady is playing Jolene? You know, it was definitely odd. So I agree with you on that. So, and then remember they lied about her age when she got adopted. They said she was 14 or 13.
They said she was 13, but I think she was supposed to be 14 in that time.
Or 15, something. She was a couple years older for sure. Yeah, so I understand.
That was the one thing I didn't think was very clear. Like, okay, this is a freshman Beth, okay, but then when they took her out of high school, and we'll talk about this later, that's where it started getting a little even more cloudy of like, okay, is she 18 yet? Is she still prodigy? I don't know.
Especially when you start introducing any form of love interest, right? You're thinking, is this legal, sir?
Yes.
You know, all those thoughts, but we'll definitely get to that. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about that shopping trip you talked about, as well as just Alma and her relationship in general. So that shopping trip gave me massive anxiety, because I just felt like, especially because of where she was and the status she was already going to have in high school, like, you're a woman as well, Alma. You couldn't look out for your adopted daughter and not take her to get the secondhand thrift store, some men's jacket, and just, I had such...
Make it work.
And she couldn't even do what she wanted, which was look at the chess sets. Remember, she told her when they came in, like, can we look at the chess sets? Oh, again, maybe, when we come down.
Made me real nervous.
Yeah, like, are you actually going to work in her favor? Because, again, Beth has not had it easy when it comes to parental figures. She's still a child. I need somebody to help to take care of her a little bit through this series. And I was hoping Alma was going to be that. And at times, she is going to end up being that. But initially, things like this gave me massive anxiety.
Yeah, because she was actually quite self-absorbed in that time. I mean, sulking or, wallowing in her depression. And obviously,
running upstairs when her husband came home from his trip to make herself up.
Yeah. And, who knows how high she actually was, because, I mean, she was drinking beer like it was water,
Because that's one thing her husband said, I'll take a beer if there's any left.
Yeah.
There's also something Alma said that I mentioned earlier that bothered me, which was when Beth was wanting, again, some financial independence so she could buy things for herself, like a chess set, like some better clothes. She said, the only girls your age who work are colored. And she said it like such an insult.
Yeah, like, oh, you don't work. We don't work.
And again, it
Yeah,
was
you
the era.
got me wearing clearance rack. Couldn't even fit that jacket. Did you
The
see that? You
whole
remember that?
Of
In
course
those
I do.
shoes?
Again, it gave me such, like, when she caught them making out in the library and she said, Beth, I know that's you. I see your ugly shoes. Like, when I saw
Girl.
you that, I was like, that, how dare you, Alma? How
Yes.
dare you do this to your
Yes.
child? This is now your child. I respect parents who want their children to look better than they do, because
Period.
again, to me, it shows a level of care. Again, not to be conceited or be
Yes.
all about material things, but you should not
Yes.
send your child off into the world at
They
that
need to be
level of a
kept.
yeah, like that was
Yes.
just, you were sending her into a situation where it was not going to be pretty. You are a woman, you were a teenage girl, you know how it
Right.
is.
Right.
But anyway, I digress. That quote bothered me a little bit though. And Alma, if I met you in real life, we had to talk about it, but I'll never meet you. So anyway, so Beth ends up having to send a note to Mr. Scheibel back at the orphanage for the entry fee to get into the Kentucky State Tournament, because yet again, Alma's like, listen, I'm gonna start giving you an allowance so you can get what you want. But then when her adopted father ends up not coming back, she's like, well, I can't give you anything, because again, she's not getting any type of an income. So Mr. Scheibel comes through, provides her that money, and she sets off to her first tournament, which was so probably the most satisfying victory for me, was that first victory, because she came in as such an underestimated player. Even the twins.
She didn't even know the rules of the game.
She didn't know what the clock was for. She didn't know a lot of things. Those twins, even, who end up becoming her friends later, were so hard on her and trying to talk down to her and stuff. So that first victory, when she came through and was just wiping the floor with everybody, even at the end when she had to, unfortunately, take a pill, go to the bathroom, pop a pill to meet Harry, it was still such a level of satisfaction, because Harry came late. He was yawning. He was just so disrespectful towards her.
Well, those are tactics, right? And
trying to psych somebody out.
Yep. And honestly, that's that happened in real life. And I read the 48 Laws of Power. One of the stories they give, there was a major chess tournament where the person used intimidating tactics to, psych their opponents out so they can have more power. That's a real thing. You know what I mean? So I was pretty impressed by that. I absolutely loved her confidence in this first tournament. I mean, even when she didn't know, like, the basics, like, what's the clock? What is the pen and paper for, and all that, she still was able to kick some major butt.
She knew how to play the game.
And what I also loved was her meeting her first crush, Towns. Her interaction towards him was really weird, because I'm like, you seem really young, but it kind of came, the performance by the actress came off a little bit too sexual for my liking. Like, I'm like, wait, so she's still 14, right? Like, why is she making these, like, oh my God.
It's those eyes that Anya has. It's just a little, I guess, a little flirtatious. I agree with you. It was interesting. Again, you didn't get the sense that they were going to cross the line at all in that point, which was what gave, didn't make it too creepy. But to your point, this is her first introduction to somebody that, it seems like she may have an attraction to, which we haven't seen from Beth yet. So
I mean, she's been around girls her whole life, and not to say she can't be attracted to girls, but obviously they are not her cup of tea. So,
we're getting the sense that she is heterosexual. And then she gets her first period. So again, it kind of points to her age, right? She gets her first period at this tournament.
First visit.
Yeah, poor thing too. She thought she was sick. Like, thank God there was another girl there, because I'm like, if you just have, like, you have no one who could possibly maybe talk to you about this. I
was actually quite panicked in that moment too, when she only put toilet paper down, because I'm like, girl, you better fake it, because what you don't want is stuff rolling down your leg.
Let's not even get too deep into it. I tell you, I had nightmares before I first started my period, so I felt for her for sure. It is a woman's burden. We deal with it.
It is a woman's. I mean, again, you get it. The horror and anxiety is there.
Yeah. So I mentioned that Beth had to pop that pill before she ended up inevitably winning the tournament and beating Carrie Beltic. Her adopted mother, though, is the reason why she gets back on these green pills, right? Because her adopted mother, Alma, is taking them. She calls it tranquility medicine.
Yes.
And so
yes.
Beth starts stealing her prescriptions and then ends up, unfortunately, returning back to her addiction.
But real talk, Ashley, real talk. Was she really sick? Or was it like, back in the day, they used to prescribe things like you remember hysteria, only women could have it, and the only way you could, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think she was sick
actually sick?
No, I don't think she was sick whatsoever. I think she was medicated because at the time that was, they did a lot of things that now would not make sense or would not be ethical, right? Even to like lobotomies and all sorts of just things that used to happen to people, and the horrible things, especially if you had any signs or symptoms of mental illness. And, it was just a lot back in the day. So I did not regard her as potentially being sick at all. I think it was her addiction to her substances that caused her to be sick. So that was very sad. The last thing I wanted to mention in this episode, so we can move on for the sake of time, is Alma was on board with chess once she saw that reward money. Delora, she said, oh, I didn't know you could make money like this from chess, and started lying to get her out of school. They started going on a whole tournament run.
Well, she saw her as a bank, so
cash cow, right? Cash cow. She was like, oh, this is how we're gonna supplement this income I'm not getting anymore from my husband. Is I'm gonna use my little adopted child. I mean, again, I try not to judge Alma too much because it was a different era. Yeah. And yet again, I don't know what else she would have done at that point, but you still, because Beth is our main character, the main concern I felt was for Beth. So it's like, is this in Beth's best interest? Yes or no? Yeah. Right. So
and I did write this quote because I really did appreciate Alma saying it. She said, I can learn to be a good mother, because I'm glad that she said that, because she definitely was not doing that before.
She said, I may not have been a good wife, but I can try my best to be a good mom. So that's a great quote, because it at least gives us an insight into Alma's intentions, because we did not know, besides her taking her from the orphanage, we didn't yet know if she was going to be, what I think of as like Matilda. Is she going to be a Miss Trunchbull, or is she going to be
exactly.
Or is she gonna be the wonderful teacher who ends up adopting Matilda and gives her a wonderful life? That was my question. Anyway, or actually I should say her birth parents in Matilda. But anyway, I digress. I'll move on to episode 3, titled Double Pawns. Mm-hmm. So summary: Beth and Alma head to the next chess tournament in Cincinnati, Ohio. Beth has now earned a reputation, Delora. So, when she went into the Kentucky State tournament, they was a little stank. Now Beth's reputation has preceded her. Yeah. So she ends up winning this tournament and then begins traveling around the country with Alma to various tournaments and sets her sights on the U.S. Open in Vegas. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately suffers her first major match defeat and has to be crowned co-champion. So let's get into these highlights. So this episode, we meet yet another chess prodigy. So Harry, in the previous episode, he was a master. He was a grandmaster, I think, or just a master.
Or he was working on it.
Yeah. So, but Benny is a prodigy. Yeah. Benny is the older version of Beth, who is, reached a point in his life where he's written books. He's done all the things. He comes off a little arrogant to me, though, and he's dressed like Indiana Jones.
I called him a rebel without a cause.
He was just a little like, I don't know what to make of you, Benny. Again, I'm looking at this child. I'm looking at this child who I've known from Love Actually, and to your point, Nanny McPhee, and I'm like, take this mustache off. Quit playing, like.
Wait. David and I, when we were watching it, I'm like, he has. He's obviously like a petite man, but he just has such a youthful face. And I just cannot believe this man is 30 years old. I just cannot believe it.
Yeah, he does still look young. But again, we meet him and we understand that, there's going to be some competition that Beth's really going to get to at some point in time that's really going to challenge her. And Benny is going to be one of them. So we also kind of get in this episode the fact that, you know, international money as far as chess goes is better than in the States. You know, they even talk about the fact that Russia is the biggie. And you talked about that kind of when we first were getting started with the show. And also, Alma asked for an agent's commission in this episode, Dolores. She asked for 10%. Beth decided to give her 15%. Did you feel justified in Alma asking for a commission from her daughter?
Yes. And I say this because she obviously was going to be mooching off of Beth anyway. Might
as well put her on the payroll.
At least there is a clear expectation of how much goes to, you know, to mom and child, you know, and so
that's valid. That's valid. I just finished Ballers. Sometimes you got to put the friends and family on the payroll. That's valid.
Sometimes, but again, it's all about clear communication and maintaining expectations. Okay.
Absolutely. And also, Alma introduces Beth to alcohol.
Yes.
It seemed harmless to Alma, but as the audience, I immediately was concerned because, again, we've seen this level of addiction that Beth has and that she's possibly predisposed to have. So she may have thought just giving her a little taste of the martini or gimlet or whatever it was on the plane was nothing.
Because it was fun. Later
on, Beth is down in beers.
Wait, the way she was down in that beer, though, I was like, I thought you only had a little bit exposure. This is how we do? Is this what we're doing? And it
was such a sweet relief, right? She's down in it like it is, you know, those vitamins. If she had not been introduced to these things possibly at such a young age, would her life have turned out differently? But it's really neither here nor there. We're at this point. It just continues to concern me for her general development and her well-being. Beth begins taking lessons to learn Russian in this episode too, because again, we talk about the fact that Russia is the big enchilada,
and she wants the big dog. She
is definitely trying to propel herself forward. She is determined to be the best, and that is much respect on your name.
Much respect, yes.
She also talks about in this that she ends up doing an interview with Life magazine.
National recognition, yes.
That's the line that I alluded to earlier where she says, chess is not always competitive. It can be beautiful, right? And again, if you're not a fan of chess, I still feel like you can appreciate the way that Beth sees it, which is that it was this art form that we got to experience throughout the course of the show. But I felt like the Life magazine interviewer was so shady and saying things like creativity and psychosis, or for that matter, genius and madness often go hand in hand. Like, ma'am, you don't know me.
I literally put in my notes, the reporter was doing the most. Like, ma'am, like, did you realize this was like a 13, 14-year-old girl? What are you talking about? And that's when Alma came in and was like, okay, it's a good time to end. We're done. She has homework.
That's when she had become a mama bear, right?
She did. And I appreciated that moment. And you could tell that it did strike a chord in Beth because she remembers her mom. Her mom was both genius and mad. Okay.
Exactly. It was a great quote. It was a great quote for the series for sure. I just felt like, again, she was brilliant in that she is able to do what she needs to do at this point and not delve into potentially the madness side of it. And we're hopeful that she's not going to delve into that side. They end up starting a chess club at her high school because they're so inspired by her and asking for her autograph.
Yes.
I wrote down how things change.
I know.
Getting invited to the
campus.
Yeah, she ends up getting invited to a pledge party for the Apple Pie Social Club.
Apple Pie.
But she quickly realizes it's not for her, right? Like they're being very basic, probably in her mind.
Basic, literally. And you could tell she just was like, you know what? I don't fit in, but I don't want to. Yeah, and that's what I loved about Beth. Again, her confidence of self-awareness of knowing, you know what, this isn't my cup of tea.
She steals a bottle of alcohol from from the dad's room and dips.
And I also feel like this is where I really got concerned with both her drug habit and alcohol habit, because I'm like, oh no, she thinks she needs this now so she can, look up to the ceiling and see, play out.
That is what she thought. That is what she thought.
That was a deeper high, or I don't know what that terminology is, but a higher high or something like that. And it was really
she felt
concerning.
like she needed it to focus. I think by that point, her dependency was such that it had become to the point where she thought she had to have it to be successful. The next scene, we seem like we may skip in time. It's Vegas 1966. And Beth arrives for the U.S. Open and is disappointed to learn that crush that she had on Towns. Whew. It's not going to be more than a friend, because she's not exactly his type. She's not exactly his type.
Not at all. Roger
came out in those Daisy Dukes, and we said, "Oh, okay, we see what's really going on here." Sorry.
I feel like Beth had Towns questioning himself, like, because he was really into those pictures they were taking. The intensity between the two was real. Okay,
I actually think they allude to later that she actually really did. He was very intrigued, and it made him question what his interest was. So it was not one-sided for sure, but it was unfortunate, because it could have been someone that we thought that Beth was going to really be romantically involved with, which she had not still had up to this point. The Russian is talked about in this episode, Borgov, and he is the one player that Beth fears. Up to this point, Beth has seemed very confident in every tournament she goes into, every match she's had. But she talks about this as being the big enchilada, the one that she's afraid of. But inevitably, it's Benny Watts, the prodigy we talked about at the beginning of the episode. He spotted a weakness in Beth's old game with Harry Beltic just by reading about it, and then ultimately bested her. She called it brutal.
Yes.
In their game. Again, has to end up being a co-champion of that tournament, which for her was crushing.
Yeah.
So that's how
so much so that she started
3.
Taking it out at on Alma, which was a bit unnecessary.
They had a little bit of a tete-a-tete, but by the end, thankfully, they were holding hands in the car as they were riding away, so it did not do permanent damage.
It's also worth noting, even before the 1966, Mama started coughing, and then by the time we meet her in Vegas, they allude to her missing out on the rest of the following year because her mom got sick. So they're escalating that factor.
Great point.
Elma's health at this point of the story.
Did you have any other last highlights before we wrap our recap of part 1 of the Queen's Gambit?
I felt like I was weary of Benny's advice to her that he offered, to be fair, especially when we know that she was going to play him the next day. I thought he was trying to get in her head, but in fact, he was correct and still managed to get in her head, But,
because it was the first time that she had someone show her up in a way that she was not comfortable with, because she would always go back, even after she played a match, guys, she would go back and study the board. She would go back and put all the pieces together to see if there were any weaknesses in her game. So the idea of someone else spotting something in her game that was weak that she didn't see, and he did it just by reading about it.
Yes. That
was very upsetting.
Yes. Yeah. And again, she was not having it as a co-champion at all. But this was the first time we saw her kind of lose, and losing takes as much grace as winning, right? And so she wasn't really the best loser really in this moment. And I thought that was worth noting. And then one pet peeve out of this episode that I like to highlight really quick Putting pills in toothbrush holders would have to be the grossest thing anyone has thought of doing ever. I mean, if you're a healthy, cleanly person, you would clean that out regularly. But if you aren't, that area, my friend, horrid.
All sorts of things, especially if it is kept in an actual bathroom. And I won't get into statistics of what may live on your toothbrush if you leave it out in your bathroom. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, guys, that is our recap of part 1 of the Queen's
Ashley.
Gambit.
Amazing job. Thank you.
That was fun.
So we get a chance to talk about our hidden gems. So this week, my hidden gem is, I only have one, and it is Hitman. It's Kelly Rowland's music video. We've mentioned some of her like newer music in our past episodes. She's come out with Coffee, and I'm specifically asking all of you all to check out this music video because it is absolutely gorgeous. It is made for melanin skin, the glowing chocolate people, the purples, the gold. It was just gorgeous. The song is fire. Kelly, gorgeous. Okay. She only has...
I was wondering for a second why she wasn't dancing, and I forgot, oh yes, she's pregnant.
yes. She only has 2 costume changes, which is fine because the song is literally 3 minutes. So, I mean, what do we need 5 costume changes for? But she kills every single one of them. I mean, I love the gloves and the big hair and the makeup and the gold, and it is black girl magic. It is melanin popping. It is all good things. And so I highly recommend it. So what about you, Ashley? What are your hidden gems, or do you just have one this week? I can't remember.
I just have one this week as well, girl, and it is a Netflix series, Voices of Fire, that me and my family watched over the holiday. It's 6 episodes, just a little over 30 minutes per episode. Pharrell and his uncle, Bishop Ezekiel Williams, are forming a multiracial gospel choir to tour the world in this show. And it's based in Virginia. It was just so inspiring and moving. They really were able to spend some time highlighting the very personal stories and testimonies from the folks that were auditioning. And it was really emotional. I mean, you had everybody from a guy who had found his aunt dead in a lake or a river, and it was, hadn't been resolved, to someone who saw their mother be murdered in front of them when they were a child, to a guy who was almost paralyzed. I mean, there were so many great personal stories. I won't give away too much, but it was very powerful. A lot of the talent was Virginia-based talent. I was thinking, it was going to be people coming from all over the place. No, they really focused in on Virginia. And me and my brother were talking, and it made me think about all the amazing, talented artists who are from Virginia. You have D'Angelo, you have Missy, you have Timberland, you have Pharrell, you have Trey Songz, you have Chris Brown. I was like, wow, I never thought about the level of talent that comes out of Virginia. But I'll just say that this I love. This was very inspiring. Again, a bit emotional at times. The music was great.
Is it original music, or is it music that's been out that they sing?
And the songs they were singing during the audition process were traditional gospel songs, but they're going to end up having a gospel album that is produced by Pharrell. So I don't know if he's already done it. He's working on it currently. They show at the end some highlights of things that the choir has been doing. So again, it's worth a watch. It's worth a look up to see what this choir is doing. Follow them. I'm sure they're on multiple platforms. Fun. I love the series. So I encourage everybody to check it out. And that is my hidden gem for this week, guys.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, girl. Appreciate it. Another week in the books.
Another week in the books. Next week, we're going to do the second half of the Queen's Gambit. And then
yes.
We're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and say it because I cannot wait to recap it. The Netflix original musical, Jingle Jango.
Yes, and I know people have been going a little nuts with it, excited about it, so we are equally excited to talk.
Ashley, I can't tell you how many times I've watched this film because of my toddler. I not only watched the film over 10 times at this point, I we play the soundtrack on a regular basis.
Oh, wow. Well, this is going to be a fun one for sure. But on that note, girl, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let all of our lovely listeners know, guys, thank you so much yet again for checking us out. Please follow us on all the things. We are on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook at Recapping Podcast. We're on all the platforms at this point. So please check us out. Rate us, subscribe, share with your friends and family. We appreciate any comments. We love all of you.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, girl, I'll see you next week, same time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.